To start watching, I'll ask you to subscribe to the channel and like it. Also, write in the comments what you would like to see on my channel. Enjoy your viewing. Story 1. How long before you feel sure about someone? The 27th of October, 2021. I've been seeing this guy for a few months now, and I've been unsure about us being right for each other long term. I enjoy his company. We get along well, and I'm definitely developing feelings for him. He has some amazing positive traits and has treated me well so far. He has also made concrete efforts to meet my needs every time I expressed them, becoming more responsive, frequent in communicating with me, opening up about his past, seeing each other more. He's warm, loving, and tries to make my life a little bit easier, which I'm not used to, but man is it nice. Then why don't I feel sure about him? Every time I feel the need to push a little further in the relationship, I spend days pondering whether to do it, if it's worth it, and whether he'll halt me and respond poorly. Still hasn't happened. I want him to ask about me, but every time he does, rarely, but it has become a little more frequent, I stumble upon my words. I'm used to having very close friends with whom I have deep, long, sometimes existential conversations with, and it's just not happening with him. When I don't see him for a while, I start feeling like he's a stranger, and then it goes away when we meet up, just to come back later. I'm alone on this roller coaster. He seems absolutely fine with how things are, stable, reliable even, but I still don't feel sure. Sure this is right for me. Sure he's trustworthy. Sure we have a common ground on how we see the world. Sure that you have a good grasp of who this person is at his core. I thought it was normal at this stage, but I recently talked to some friends and they told me they were sure, or at least sure enough, pretty early on. So I come here to ask, how long does it take for you to feel that sureness about the person you're seeing? Have you ever had this kind of feelings, and how did it turn out in the end? Comment. My first question would be to ask what your past relationships were like. If they were toxic, had poor boundaries, were emotionally immature, etc. in some way, then anything that is steady, healthy, respectful, and responsive is going to feel alien and uncertain. The next question is, how emotionally available are you? And answer that honestly. Because if you are typically used to someone else driving the relationship forward and cracking you like a nut, then when you're faced with something that waits for your cues and puts you in the driver's seat, you're going to sit there idling. Link. OP. Thank you for asking this. I've been out of the dating scene for a very long time, hit rock bottom, made some very positive changes in my life. Thank God for therapy. And after a while went into dating for something casual, which is how things started with this guy, but then they became exclusive and progressed because I liked him. I have been described as avoidant by a couple exes, as come closer, but hey, not too close. That said, I walked into this completely aware of what I did wrong in the past and willing to open up and be emotionally available. Maybe this is just me finding out that wanting to be open and actually being open are two different things. I am okay with doing that, but it feels like I'm waiting for some kind of cue from him that he'd care to know more about me, and I'm not getting it. I think you're spot on about being used to having the other person driving the relationship forward. Funny enough, I don't respond well to that either. Link. Other comment. In my last relationship, I took months to feel totally sure about my guy, and as soon as I did, he dumped me. The apprehension really didn't do anything good for me. So I feel this in my bones. It takes me a long time to trust and get on board with new people. If I were in your shoes, I would try to move forward with an open heart. But if you start having serious reservations, you shouldn't ignore that. Link. Update the 30th of November 2021, 1 month later. First of all, so many of you guys were spot on. Some other people weren't, but every comment helped me figure out how I felt and how to proceed. I thought about breaking things off, and the idea pained me. So instead I did something I was still not 100% comfortable with. I introduced him to a friend. And I know it can sound lame, but in my adult life I'd never gotten to the point where I was able to get over the anxiety of other people's judgment over my choices in partners. This time I wanted to push through. So first I asked him, my friend R invited me to go meet his new girlfriend, want to join? I was sure he'd come up with an excuse not to. Instead, he agreed right away. He checked more than once the day and time because, in his words, I don't want to be late and embarrass you in front of your friends. I was expecting to be struck by some huge flaw of his I hadn't noticed before. Instead, he was lovely the whole night. He insisted to pay for drinks. He got along well with R and his girlfriend. On our way back, he said R had told him something along the lines of, "OP is a nice person, and I can see she's found a good guy." So cheesy. And he was so goddamn happy to have received those words of affirmation from someone so close to me. I could see it. I realized he had known for a while that R was my ex, and he had never expressed jealousy or controlling behavior. Instead, he said, "I can see you're happy around him, and I'm glad you have such a good friend." And he meant it. Then it clicked. I realized I had been expecting the worst of this poor guy since the day I met him, and all he had shown me was kindness and care. The more I grew to like him, the more I got panicky and thought the whole thing was destined to turn sour. Based on what evidence? When a condom broke and we had to discuss what we'd do in case of pregnancy, and I was afraid his religion would make him rule out abortion, he took my hands and said we'd do what I wanted, and he'd be there either way. When I got the chance to score a new big client, he asked me about every development and said he was sure I'd get it, because I'm smart, capable, and hard-working. When the handle of my fridge broke, he fixed it. When I first told him about the reasons I've been in therapy for the last 2 years, he was warm and accepting. He asked when is my birthday 2 weeks after I met him. He's asked to meet more of my friends. When his health was acting up and I was worried that if something happened to him, I'd never know, he gave my number to one of his friends and told him to contact me if he ever was in a situation where he couldn't. He has cooked for me and made sure I have enough leftovers to bring to work the next day. After our first few weeks together, he kissed me on the eyes, and I jokingly told him what my mother taught me. When you kiss someone on the eyes, it's the last time you'll see them. He has never done that again. There, that's the evidence I had that made me so distrustful. I did it all on my own. I felt like such an idiot. I was such an idiot. But after that night, it just clicked. I was relieved. I took a deep breath and relaxed. And it worked like magic. Everything fell into place. We're going out more. We're talking more. I can actually fall asleep next to him. A few nights ago, we were joking, and I told him, "By the way, I think you're my boyfriend now." No answer. If you agree, I was almost ready to retreat and pass it as a big joke. He laughed and said, "You were my girlfriend since the first night I spent with you." Not a hint of resentment. It made my heart ache. That's it. I still don't know where this is headed, but I'm okay with just letting it play out and live in the moment. But at least now I'm sure this is the person I want to be with right now. Thanks for sharing, OP. This is a happy, welcome change from the shit show that's often posted here. Happy for you guys. If someone said this to me, I'd die right there. You were my girlfriend since the first night I spent with you. Cried reading it, actually. You're a lucky girl. Keep him. Story 2. I saw my husband and my sister naked in my kitchen. October 19th, 2022. I saw my husband and my sister naked in my kitchen. I can't move. If I move, it becomes real, and I have to accept what I saw and think of what's next. I came home from work early and saw my sister's car, thinking maybe she was dropping off some food from her job. But no. I walk in and see my husband and sister naked in my kitchen, the kitchen I paid for. As soon as I registered what I saw, I got into my car and left. I kept driving, just driving until I found the hotel I'm at now. I don't want to believe it. I don't know what to do. My sister, my only family, and my best friend, the one who's supposed to be there for me and support me. My husband, my person, my other half, the one who's supposed to love and respect me. The 2 most important people in my life have ruined everything. I've blocked them both on my phone. I don't want to hear any of the bullshit excuses they'll come up. I don't want to confront this. I want to go back to this morning when everything was fine. Relevant. Comment? Commenter 1. The my only family part is what hit me hard. I'm so sorry, OP. Oh, OP. Yeah, we cut contact with our abusive parents 7 years ago, thought we were supposed to have each other's backs, always. October 21st, 2022. 2 days later. Sorry for not replying to comments and not updating, things have been hectic. I didn't think I needed to explicitly say this, but by naked, I meant they were butt naked and fucking in the kitchen. I admit mentioning that I paid for the kitchen was odd and kind of funny, but anyone that knows me knows that the kitchen is my pride and joy. So yes, when I saw my sister and husband fucking in my kitchen, it stuck with me. And yes, they did see me. When I got to the hotel, I cried for a few hours. And then I just wanted to tell someone. Anyone. The two people I would talk to when something happened in my life were the two I needed to talk about, and it was 11-something in the evening, so I wasn't going to disrupt my friends' evenings and burden them. So instead, I came to Reddit thinking not many would see it. The response I received was overwhelming. I want to say thank you to everyone that sent me kind words and advice. Thank you so much for all the virtual hugs. I know I only commented once. It's because I had so much to think about and do. I appreciate all the love and support. There was so much amazing advice given in the comments. Although a lot of it was American-based, I still appreciate it. But one thing I did see a lot was to unblock them and keep the texts and calls as evidence, so I did do that. After posting and another good cry, I knew that I had to get my shit together. I didn't have my sister or any family to help, so I had to do it myself. I started researching what my next steps were. In the morning, my friend called me saying my sister contacted her wondering if I had been in contact with her. I told her what happened, and she very kindly offered her spare room and her day off work to help me sort stuff out. I called in sick at my job, and my friend helped get things done. I got in contact with my friend who works at a bank, and she helped me start sorting my financials. My friend also found me a lawyer to consult with. After my phone consultation with the lawyer, I was so overwhelmed. I now know why so many women don't divorce their cheating husbands. It's such a lengthy, expensive, and emotionally draining process. I fortunately make a stable income and can support myself, and we fortunately don't have kids. I have to remember that things aren't going to happen in one day. It will all take time. As for the house, unfortunately, his parents did buy it for us, and to be honest, after what I saw, I don't want it. I will try to get reimbursed for my beloved kitchen, otherwise it can burn for all I care. This has been super draining, but I knew I had to talk to them. I already knew there was no coming back for my husband, and when I checked his messages, they were exactly what I thought they would say. I'm sorry. It's not what it looks like. We didn't mean for it to happen. Please come home, I love you, blah blah blah, just absolute bullshit. A small part of me thought maybe I could find it in me to forgive my sister as we only have each other. But after I opened her messages, all hope was lost. She used the same excuses we heard our father use when he cheated on our mother and beat us. She said the same things our mother would say when she would excuse our dad's behavior and also beat us. I spoke to her this morning and asked her to tell me straight up who, what, where, when, and why. She told me back in July when I went on a girls' trip she was at our house and joked to my husband that I would cheat on him on the girls' trip because that's what always happens. He said, "Nah," and they joked about it, but she said he could get even with me and they ended up doing it once. One time lead to 2 to 3, then to whenever they could do it. There was never any evidence or signs or anything that I was going to or even thinking of cheating. I told her we were done and there is nothing she could do to bring us back together. I later received a call from an unknown number. It was my mother, who I haven't spoken to in 7 years. Turns out my sister has been in contact with her and told her what had happened, and my POS mother, the same woman who beat me for breathing wrong, had the audacity to say this is what I get for taking her daughters away from her. It hurts so much. I know things are going to get messier, and this is going to be a long few years. I've now lost all my blood relations. I need to get all my shit and find a new place. I want to show them that I can and I will thrive without them. Again, thank you all from the bottom of my heart for all the love and advice. All the people in the comments that could relate to me, I'm so sorry.
Relevant comment.
Asterisk, asterisk. Commenter 1. Asterisk, asterisk. I'm very proud of you for taking charge and standing up for yourself. I know it's very hard, but you got this. You will get through this. OOP. Thank you for your kind words. It's pretty hard losing the only family I had, but I'm trying so hard to stay optimistic. Betrayal like this is fucking devastating. It will be long and hard and draining, but I will make it. Commenter 2. Hold your head high and cut all of them out of your life. Do his parents actually own the house, or did they just give money? Cut off mother and sister for good. Your sister had a piece of work. OOP. They gave my ex-husband the money for the house, so it's under his name, and yes, my sister can join my mother and do whatever. They're no longer related to me. Commenter 3. Out of curiosity, have you asked his parents if they knew what was going on? This will give them the opportunity to hear what actually happened rather than the lies he'll tell to cover his bad behavior. OP. As soon as I started receiving messages from his mother, I knew he had been feeding them a false narrative. She's been calling me names for bringing my cheating backside and my slutty sister into his life. She never liked me because of my background and thought I should forgive my mother. Unfortunately, all I'll hear from them is the bullshit he's told them. August 5th, 2023, 9.5 months later. I actually forgot about this account until recently, and when I logged back in, I saw so many people still commenting, messaging me, and checking up on me. To those people, thank you for your kindness. Since so many still ask for an update, and I've already shared such a big part of my life, I may as well give a small update. Back in October, my life was in chaos, but I was determined to soldier through it and show them that I can make it without them and succeed. I had to meet with my ex to talk about the house, and he kinda gave up and we decided to sell the house. I was reimbursed for my beloved kitchen. At first, my sister would show up at my job and my friend's house, but once I told her that I would get the police involved, she stopped. I haven't seen her since February. I did hear from my pathetic excuse of a mother again, but that was also shut down, and I have not heard from her since the end of last year. I'm from NZ, so my ex and I have to be living separately for 2 years before we can divorce. Although I want nothing to do with him, I'm not too fussed. 1 year is almost done. I started therapy, which has been healing. I wish I had gone earlier. I have moved into my apartment and I was promoted at work. I have also gone on 2 girl trips and had some extra fun these times as I was a single woman. And I've also just started seeing someone. He has been very kind. Thank you all again for your kindness. Hope, this is the update you were waiting for. Comment? Commenter 1. I'm glad you updated. You're happier. Never introduced the man to the family. Wouldn't put it past your sister to repeat her behavior. Cutting the toxic people in your life brings so much mental freedom. Living a happy single life after divorce is a kindness to yourself. Best update so far. New update. January 15th, 2025, 17 months later. Hello, it's been a while. I still get messages and notifications asking for an update, so this will be my last one. I am officially divorced. It took a while, but I got there, and my ex-husband had 2 years to accept it and not fight it. I've got my own house, a nice kitchen, a cute, mature man on my arm, friends who treat me like a sister should, and a job that respects me. I'm happy and couldn't care less where my biological family are and what they are doing. I am enjoying the wonderful summer we are having in NZ and living my life. Thank you all for the support. All the best. Relevant comment. Commenter 1. So glad to hear you've landed on your feet. Wished we heard more about the ex, like he's an unemployed drunk now or something. Or the sister, like she had a bad reaction to some shampoo and all her hair fell out. Oh well. Oopie. No idea where my sister is, but ex is just a working loner loser. Commenter 2. So happy to hear you're doing well. Thank you for updating us and all the best with your new life. Story 3. Me, 24F with my ex, 27M of 4 years ago. I think he broke into my apartment and set up a camera. Am I being crazy? October 19th, 2015. I, 24F, met my ex, 27M, 7 years ago, and we dated for about 1 year, and I ended up pregnant. He is a Jehovah's Witness, and I was raised in this, but was never baptized, thankfully. When I ended up pregnant, I was told that I had to marry him if I wanted to be in good standing at the Kingdom Hall, church. I agreed and decided not to listen to my parents when they begged me to take my time and make that decision later. Of course, this meant staying and living with my parents, and as a brainwashed 18 years old, I thought he was the best thing that's ever happened to me, and he couldn't do me wrong because he was a Jehovah's Witness, and they can't do no wrong. Boy, was I wrong. While pregnant, he would emotionally and physically abuse me. to the point where my son was premature and I fell into postpartum depression. When my son was 8 months old, I decided I had enough, and I needed to put my feelings and love I had for this man aside and make the right decision for my son. I left him. I left the religion. I don't know how I did it, but to this day I thank my son for giving me the strength and love to get past it. Fast forward about 5 years. I am doing great. I have an amazing career. Great car. I live on my own with my son. We have everything we need. I recently began my first relationship, and he's amazing. My ex and I actually have a pretty cordial co-parenting relationship. He seems to have matured a lot, and is now in a relationship. I get along great with his GF, and my son likes her. He recently decided to move 2 doors next to my place. I didn't really mind this, as we don't fight or hate each other. I actually saw this as a good thing, since he will be closer to our son and can be more involved in school. Last week I walk into my apartment and someone had broken in, but they didn't take anything at all. A few stuff were moved around. Seemed like they were looking for something and gave up. The first thing that popped in my head was my son's father. I have been living here for years and never had any issues. I actually live in front of the police station, so unless you go in through the back, they would see everything. I filed a police report and left it at that. Now this is where it gets weird, and my suspicion is proving itself to be right. I dropped off my son at his house 3 days ago, and he mentioned how I shouldn't allow our son to have certain toys because they are violent action figures, Power Rangers. There is no way he would know this. Since he is a JW, I don't like disrespecting his beliefs, so I make sure that my son does not bring those toys to his house. When I asked him how he knew about it, he turned pale. He didn't know what to say and finally said that my son mentioned it. Okay, so maybe my son could have told him, but maybe he didn't. To add to my suspicion, 2 days ago, I dropped my son off in the AM and he slipped and told me that I need to shower my son every day because last night I didn't. There is no way my son could have told him. He didn't speak to him, and it was literally the morning after. Also, I shower my son every day, but he had swim class and we got home late, so I figured he was okay to skip. I know sounds lazy, but I'm sure we've all had those days. Am I being paranoid? I hate feeling like I don't have privacy in my own home. Should I ask him? Is there a way I can check myself? I've tried looking, but nothing I see that shows me there could be a camera. Daughter. Someone broke into my house 2 weeks after my ex moved in next door. I think he put a camera in my home to see how I'm living with my son. Relevant comment. OP added this in the comments as a reply to a commenter. I did not know he was moving in 2 doors down. He told me when he signed the lease, and at that point, I tried to look at the bright side of things. I now see that there is no bright side in this situation. I hate the feeling of walking out my door and knowing he can see what time I am home and what time I get back by just seeing if my car is in my driveway. I agree that the religion he is teaching my son is not good in any way. But there's not much the law will do besides give me full rights to his medical decisions, which I have. When he's with his dad, he goes to his church, but when he is with me, he knows we don't do any of that stuff. Once my son is at a certain age, he will be able to make the right decision, and I will always steer him the right way. Make him ask questions and to do his research first, then come to a conclusion. We have shared custody, but I make the decisions on medical. I tried taking custody, but unfortunately I lost the case. The abuse is documented. I lifted the restraining order after 2 years that we divorced. We would do pick-up and drop-off at the police station, and after 2 years, I had to take the next step in trusting that the past was just that. I did not want my son asking me why he gets dropped off at a police station parking lot. I did see a therapist, mostly for the way that the religion had a hold of me. I also was suffering from postpartum depression, so a whole lot of things were discussed. I don't think I was ever able to recover. It was so bad that my mind physiologically blocked my memories of those years, which is something my therapist warned me about. Although it's good that I don't recall certain things, it also makes me vulnerable. Just like it did in this situation. Certain things definitely trigger it, like certain songs or going back to that town. I should also mention that my son's father was diagnosed with bipolar. I would not be shocked if I have a camera in my apartment. I am gathering all the advice on this thread, and will have to tactfully make a plan that I can look for it without seeming like I am. Yeast. Cheshire. I'm a former JW too. Do you think it's possible that he's trying to figure out if you're sleeping with your boyfriend, and that your ex is therefore biblically free to remarry? Oop. We divorced already. The elders told him not to sign it because that means that he can't remarry. I took it to court, and after showing the court all my police reports and pictures of abuse, they consented the divorce. I do see your point. On his end, he is not free to remarry. This could be why he is doing this. Although he is SOL, because I do not have my BF stay over. I will always go to his place when he is with his father, especially now that he lives so close. It's weird. October 27th, 2015. I have been lurking in the sub for the past week, and I am so happy I found this. I really wish I would have known about this years ago when I left the congregation. It would have made the pain less and the loneliness not as bad. When I left the organization, I had no friends and no encouragement that I almost convinced myself multiple times to go back, but I was able to get through it. I wanted to share my story with you, but before I'll give a little background on my past. I pretty much grew up as a witness and I never got baptized. I met my son's father when I was about 18 and I ended up pregnant a couple months after that. The elders pretty much forced marriage on me. As soon as we moved in together, he was abusive. It was horrible. He would physically abuse me knowing I was pregnant with his son. It got so bad that I would literally urinate myself because of how scared I was of him. The last time he laid his hands on me was when I was 6.5 months pregnant. I remember he barged into the bathroom since he knew I was calling the cops, and when he opened the door, he hit my belly and I went straight into the tub. They had to perform an emergency C-section. When I was under anesthesia, he even signed a paper stating I would be refusing blood transfusion, and since he was my husband, it was his decision to make. Thankfully, I had great doctors, and my son and I were healthy and made it through. I remember the elders coming to visit me when I was still in the hospital. I remember them telling me that I needed to work harder in putting Jehovah first in our marriage, because without him, our marriage would fail. A few months later, I left him, and I left the organization. I went to therapy for my postpartum depression, and I was able to physiologically block those memories even though sometimes certain things trigger it, and it all comes back. It's insane how the mind works. I have a great relationship with my parents. They never shunned me, and they always look after my son and I. I know they are brainwashed, but I know deep down my father knows I made the right decision. And after all this mess, I think he's opening his eyes a little. The link below is my first post, and then below I copied and pasted my update. I don't know why they locked my post. I was at work, and when I checked, it was automatically locked. I did receive some good advice on there, but it's different when it comes from people who know what you grew up in and know just how much mind control plays a big role on everything when it comes to JW. I also would like some advice on how to handle these elders. They keep calling my parents and begging them to reason with me. I am assuming this is really going to reflect them in a bad light, and we all know how much they hate that. Also, please keep in mind that my parents, although witnesses, have my best interest in mind. My father sat me down and told me no matter what he will stand by my decision, and he will fully support me going through with these charges. I just wish that they didn't have to receive all this harassment. Update. First and foremost, thank you for all your suggestions and messages on what steps I should take. So much has happened these past 7 days, and my life is just turned upside down completely. I will try to explain without making it too long. I will start by last week, Wednesday. After reading all the comments, I decided to purchase a spy finder off Amazon. I figured it would put my mind at ease, and I can finally feel comfortable in my own home. I paid for 2-day delivery and planned out what I would do so that I can use this without being obvious. Since I knew that the only way I can do this was by having my son's father in front of me, so I decided to tell him I needed to speak with him regarding a new schedule I would like to follow. Friday, we decided to meet up for ice cream with our son. I gave my BF a spare key so he can go in and see if the spy detector worked. I want to say that our meeting lasted about 40 minutes until I finally got the okay from my BF and I wrapped up the conversation. When I got into my car, I called my BF, and all he told me that I needed to drop my son off at my mom's and head over to my place. I did exactly as he said. When I arrived at my place, I parked and my BF comes inside my car and breaks the news to me. He told me that the detectors detected something, but it was not clear. It kept showing red in my son's room around the doorknob, but it also showed red on one side of a wall that didn't have anything hanging near it. At this point, I didn't know what to do or say. Maybe this was just a malfunction and there is nothing there, or maybe there is. I decided that I needed to call the cops. I didn't know if it was going to be the right call, but it's showing signal in my son's room, and that was enough for me to make that call even if I sounded silly to the cops. Once the cops showed up, I explained to him the situation. He usually works the morning shift surveillance in my son's school, so I see him every morning. He was very understanding and told me he was calling in a tech that would have the equipment, as not all cops carry it. At this point, I still did not tell the cops that I thought maybe it was my son's father. I figured once it was confirmed, I would let out that part. 10 minutes later, my son's dad walks up my driveway and asks if I am okay. I say yes, and that's when the cop walks up. I think he saw how uncomfortable I was, and tells him only the residents are allowed to be there. He goes to tell the cop that he is my son's father, and the cop starts asking him if he is from the area. As soon as he tells him he recently moved 2 houses down, the cop asked him to leave since he was not a resident. Once off the property, the cop starts asking me more questions about my son's father, and that's when I went into full-blown detail. After the conversation, he tells me it's a high chance that he could have placed a camera in my son's room. Once the tech arrived, he scanned the room, and at this point we were told to still wait outside. About 30 minutes later, he asks me to come in and for my BF to stay behind. He proceeds to tell me that there was a camera in my son's room. They found a tiny camera in the doorknob. Not sure if you are familiar with this, but my doorknobs lock from the inside, but on the opposite side, there is a little hole where you usually need a flathead screwdriver or a similar-looking key to open it. I will take a picture later on to show. He explained to me whoever put in this camera replaced the doorknobs with 2 of the same knobs, meaning that the door no longer has a lock. I never realized this. It was such a small detail that I never realized. I never lock my son's room, so this was not something I would look into. I broke down. I didn't know what to say or what to think. He told me that it was linking through Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. Unfortunately, the camera signal was cut, and he was working on getting some code to see where the signal was coming from. Once they confirmed this, I was given the address, and of course it ended up coming from my ex's address. Not the exact address, but more coordination points. No idea what they refer it to, they just told me it's a system they use to track a signal. I was in complete shock. I think part of me thought he would never do this. He would never violate my privacy and our son's privacy by doing this. I thought we were past this stage. After they broke the news to me, they told me I can press charges if I would like. If this is what I decided to do, they would have to process a warrant for his arrest. It was the hardest decision I had to make, but I told them yes. They explained to me that the best thing for me to do was to stay at a relative's or friend's house until this was resolved, as it can be dangerous for me to be so close to him. I don't understand why they couldn't take him then and there, but I told them I would pack a bag. I decided to stay at my parents' home. It was near my job, and it was a place my son was comfortable staying in. I did not hear from my ex at all Saturday. I know I mentioned in my previous post that my parents' ex are Jehovah's Witness, which plays a big part in this whole story. Sunday night, my parents had plans, and I stayed behind with my son. I hear a knock on the door. I look, and to my surprise, it is 2 elders. I guess you can call them pastors to those not familiar with the terms. These were the same men that would tell me not to call the cops when my ex would get physical. These are also the same men that watched me grow up since I was 3. I decided to open the door, and they asked to come in. My brother was in the other room, so I felt a little more at ease speaking with them. As soon as they start taking the Bible out, I tell them I do not feel comfortable with that, and if they have anything to say, it will be through a conversation and not through the Bible. They agreed and started explaining to me the consequences my ex is facing in the Kingdom Hall for what he has done. They also told me that my ex was taken down to the station Sunday morning, but that he confessed to them everything on Saturday. To make it short, they begged me to drop the charges and kept telling me to think about my son, to think about how he would feel knowing his dad is facing these charges. They kept saying over and over that Jehovah does not condemn his behavior, and sometimes the organization can work this out within themselves. I told them I would not drop the charges. What he did was violate my privacy, and that I was happy that they would work it out between their religion, but I would work out my end through the law. They proceeded to tell me that they have lawyers that can back up my ex, and that if this is the route I take, I should make sure I am covered as well. They also said the reason he put a camera is because he wants custody of my son, because it's not fair to him to not have eternal life and my ex can save my son. Crazy, right? I don't know what he was trying to find by putting a camera in my son's room because I have absolutely nothing to hide and my son is very well taken care of. I asked them to leave and they did. When I told my dad about what happened and what they were saying to me, he called one of the elders and pretty much went off on him. I hope it doesn't ruin his rep since I know this religion means the world to him, but at the same time, I also hope maybe this will open his eyes. This is all such a nightmare to me. I don't know what to do. Deep down, I do not want to press charges because he is my son's father. I don't want this to ruin his record, or for my son to grow up and find out I placed his dad in jail over this. I also know what it's like to be brainwashed and be under mind control. The other part of me feels like he needs to learn his lesson. He needs to know that you can't simply violate someone's privacy because of your religion. I'm not sure what is or will be happening yet. Last I heard, he was out on a bail and will have a court date, which I will need to appear to as well. At that time, I can decide to drop the charges if I wanted to. I also received a court date from the family court, and he is going for full custody. He filed about a month ago, so this is something he has been planning. I am hoping this whole thing will work for my benefit, which is another reason why I should not drop the charges as it will help me in family court. So for now, that's all that has happened. I don't know what steps to take from here, and I am sort of taking it day by day. I have found a new place, and after talking to my landlord, he is letting me break the lease. I hate that I have to move. I love my apartment, and I will be moving to a much smaller place for more dollar. I wish I didn't have to move, but there is not much else I can do. Relevant comment. One-liter duck eater. Do not drop any charges, my reasoning. Besides all the religious BS, your ex is not rational and is already physically abusive. This is a bad combo. It has been my experience that he will never get better without therapy and/or medication, and most likely issues will arise where he won't do or continue treatment even if he started. What are the charges against your ex? Has the DA's office stopped any further investigation? Have you had an opportunity to speak with the investigators in your case? Have they hinted that they have other concerns about him? Law enforcement can be very effective in unearthing things through intimidation. They, however, will not want to be jerked around and expend the effort if they sense you won't follow through. They may intimidate you a little to test your resolve. Hold fast to what you decide. All the data he was gathering about you to perhaps further his custody case has been made null and void and is inadmissible because it was garnered from a criminal act and will not be allowed to be presented. His illegal actions will also be used against him. All that goes away if you don't press charges. If you have not contacted a local agency concerning spousal abuse, regardless of marriage status, they will help you or direct you to help. They have experience in this and will guide you to the best course of action as well as provide support. Concerning the elders that visited, regardless of what we think about the org, that wasn't protocol, and if you want that bullshit to stop dead in its tracks, contact or have someone contact a sharp elder from another congregation, etc. If you want that. These things that are happening to you are not unique to the org. They happen everywhere a lot. Because of that, there are many resources. Please make use of them. I hope you remain safe and everything works out for the best for you. I actually went today to the court to file a restraining order, and they gave me a temporary one until the court date where the judge will make it permanent. I also went to the station and asked more info on what was going on. They couldn't tell me much besides that even if I do drop charges, the state is also pressing charges. Apparently they take this stuff really serious since it was in a child's room. They told me someone would be in contact with me, but I should get a lawyer since it's not recommended to do this alone, as there are many things I won't understand or will need professional advice on. I asked them what they did with the evidence, and they told me they have it and cannot release it to anyone since it is now in municipal custody. I am looking into lawyers and made a few consultations for tomorrow. My court date for custody is at the end of November, so I am hoping the other court date for the camera is before, so I can have more evidence that he is not suitable to take custody. Although I feel that just by having those charges pending and him out on bail is enough for the judge to rule me full custody, as I'm now seeking for that as well. We have shared custody, but after this I want full custody. Friday Fern. Wow, go your dad! IMO, your ex is a psychopath and should be locked up immediately. You have a fantastic BF and a good cop, now listen to these people and get a good lawyer. It looks like the dominoes are all set up to fall upon this creep. OP. I am definitely lawyering up and will keep all charges. The state is also pressing charges, so by the looks of it, he is in deep, deep trouble, which is why the elders are acting the way they are. After the whole child abuse stuff going on, I am sure they don't want an article stating how a JW had a camera installed in his son's bedroom. I also forgot to mention that one of the elders is actually my ex's uncle, which could be another reason for the constant pressure to drop the charges. Old movie fan. This sounds like really strange behavior from the elders, almost like they have a vested interest in having the charges dropped. Now why might that be? If your ex is going for full custody, he would have sought the assistance of the elders. Maybe the elders suggested he put in a spy camera, or maybe they knew someone who had expertise in this. If the charges aren't dropped, the facts might come out. I don't know if you are a ward, but the organization has a printed guide for JWs involved in custody cases. If the elders are calling your parents, get them to ask the elders whether your ex had specifically admitted to breaking in and installing the spy cam, and if there was anyone else involved. When the elders told you that he would be dealt with in the congregation, did they spell out what they would do? Do not drop any charges, especially for the sake of your son. OP. One of the elders is actually my ex's uncle, which makes it a conflict of interest, although he was part of the committee when I was pregnant, and they took away my privileges I had as an unbaptized pubble-sire, if that's the term. Sorry I went to a Spanish hall and do not know some of the English terms. It seems so weird to me just how much they are pushing and harassing my family. It's almost as if something else is happening that they are afraid of. They told me that they are still going through their process, but that this can lead up to him being reprimanded. What's the term where you are not shunned, but you are pointed out as bad association? Is it censored? Not sure, but he won't get shunned, just a slap on the wrist. Story 4. My sister wants to use a burial plot she doesn't own. January 3rd, 2025. My sister, 54F, and I, 63M, are estranged for a lot of reasons. She was the golden child. I was given a 63 Chevy pickup when I got my driver's license. She got a Mustang convertible. I went to college and she did drugs and had children without marriage. I got student debt. She got a mobile home, which she, of course, lost due to drugs. She had 2 wonderful kids that we were able to get taken from her and are doing well. Our father raised them. My father and mother were divorced in the 1970s due, in part, to the stress of my sister. My mother tried to help her. She let her live with her and helped her get jobs, but she always relapsed. So now to the present situation. My father died 4 years ago and I bought him a nice burial plot in Bozeman, MT. The plot is in my name and is in a very nice location in the veterans section. My mother died last summer. I went up and was at the hospital when she died. My sister was nowhere around. We were able to reconnect without her. My mom's will stated that my sister and I were supposed to get the house jointly, but somehow she got on the deed by right of survivorship, which meant she got it. She tried to get me to help pay the remaining mortgage, But that wasn't going to happen, so she had to sail and I bought it. She was mad and took Mom's remains and disappeared, so we couldn't hold a ceremony. Now 6 months later, she reappears and says that she paying for a burial. But here is the catch. My mother is a veteran, so she has a veteran group to pay for the room, the VA for the headstone, and I get a call from the funeral home asking if they bury her with Dad, someone who was divorced from for 50 years. Relevant. Comment? Commenter 1. In addition to the headstone, Mom might also be eligible for burial at a U.S. Veterans Cemetery for free. Locate her DD 214 if you haven't already made other burial plans. OOP. We told her she could be buried for free at a national cemetery. My guess is she loves the plot I snagged for my dad, and I admit it is nice. But why is OOP responding to his sister? OOP. I am not responding to her. I have no way to respond to her. She blocked me a while ago. We have talked through lawyers like the little prick who got her on the deed, so the will was useless. The only reason I found out about this at all was the funeral home realized that the plot wasn't owned by my sister or my mother and tracked me down. They had my number because they buried my dad. OOP explains why he is not burying his mother's ashes with his father's. OP. Well, there are two things. The grandkids want to get their grandma buried and away from my sister. They don't have the history I have with Mom and Dad. They saw them together without the fighting, so they want to get it done. They want to be able to visit them. My niece does take her kids to visit my dad's grave, so this is a factor. Giving in to my sister just makes me sick. I was going to buy a plot when Mom died last summer, but she run with the remains. Now there is no time, so I am backed into a corner and the kids are more important than my hurt feelings. But I get to write the obituary. January 6th, 2025, 3 days later, I am going to update. I fat-fingered my original post. My sister is 57, not 54. My parents' divorce was official in 83, but they separated in 78 or so. I corrected this by answering some commenters. Was she really a terror as a kid? She got in drugs at 10 and was sneaking in boys at 13 when I was at college. This was 78, 83. I was old of state. My father was retired Navy and there was a recession. My mom did work, but it was a strain. I went through college on student loans, scholarships, and jobs. They tried treatment and buying her good behavior. My brother basically quit the whole thing and joined the Army. He was a member of the 101st, so we are not all screwed up. Now the update. I talked to the funeral home today. It seems that my sister's plan was to place my mom's remain in the veteran wall at the cemetery. But Bozeman Cemetery is not part of the national cemetery system. Normally, a wall interment would be free for a veteran, but since Bozeman isn't part of the system, it is $500. So she points at Dad's plot and said bury her there. The rest is history. The funeral calls me when they figure out the plot isn't owned by her or my dad, and here we are. I'm trying to see if we can get the wall slot again. The remains are back at the funeral home. Family! January 15th, 2025, 9 days later. So, the short backstory, my sister is a bitch who is holding my mother's remains hostage to get her way. She wants to bury my mother in the plot I own that I buried my father in. They have been divorced for more than 40 years. The update. After some research, I offered to pay to inter my mother in the veteran wall. My sister threw a fit. Not directly to me, we don't talk. She just let the funeral home know she wouldn't return the remains. I would have to buy a few plot, but I just bought a house and I'm furnishing it, so money it tight. She knew that. It was Mom's house and she is mad I bought it. She has driven by it several times. I am about to put it out on the short-term rental market. So, after talking to my family, the grandchildren and others, I have thrown in the towel. We are burying Mom in Dad's plot. She will have an eye-ground brass marker. It kills me that my sister has reduced my mom's service to a brass welcome mat to my father's headstone. My family has said they will know, but damn it hurts. My sister cannot take some money from the sale of the house and buy a plot or split the cost with me. Additional information from OOP. OOP. I guess this is a small update. I talked to the funeral home yesterday. My sister will be bringing the remains on the day of the burial and watching them, so switching it really isn't a possibility. I have to go back up this summer, so I'm going to look as arranging re-interning her then. At least it wouldn't be above freezing. Relevant comment? OOP explains his mother's background and her wishes after death. OOP. My mom is a veteran too. I am very proud of her service from 56 to 61. She could have been a secretary or medical assistant, but decided to be an electronic technician. Not many females of those in the Navy. She worked on the early communication systems for the nuclear submarines in Rhode Island and San Diego, leading-edge technology at the time. Last I talked to her, she wanted her ashes to spread in the mountains. Why my sister is insisting on this burial and holding the ashes hostage is a mystery. I am actually surprised I haven't had a ransom note yet. OOP provides details on why he is renting his mother's house out. OP. I should add to this. The house was built in 2014, so wasn't the family home, but my sister smokes like crazy. It smelled bad. The carpet was stained, as were the walls and window coverings. The garage floor was stained with dog pee and smelled. So we tore out the carpet and painted with Cliz. We sealed the garage floor and put in new window treatments. The dishwasher had leaked, so we had to mold remediation, and the HVAC system had issues. So we expect, with the market, to get a positive return in 2 years or so. Then we can come back and remodel the bathrooms and move in or keep it for income. That was my Christmas holiday, putting my mom's retirement house back into proper condition. I think she would like it. OOP shouldn't given in to his sister's demands. OOP. Well, with Mother gone, she has lost her last chip in the game. We haven't spoken in years except through lawyers or via my mother. She lost the house she inherited and has had to move far from Bozeman. Her kids hate her. Her grandkids run to me when I come up there. My son used to like her, but now can't stand her after what she pulled at his sister's wedding. She won this one, but really at what cost? Why did the cemetery allow this mess to happen regarding placing OOP's mother in his father's plot? OP, the cemetery didn't. Once they realized this plot she was talking about, they called me for permission. That is what started this mess.
Hershey.
Story 5. Tifu by volunteering to drive my professor to the airport. December 3rd, 2024. So I'm a political science major at my college, and, honestly, it is a lot harder than I expected. I love my major so much and hope to pursue law one day. But this semester in particular has bogged me down. My international relations class is what's really kicking me. The professor loves to favor her students that are in the student club that she is the advisor for and actively dismisses anyone who is not a part of it and not interested in joining, and this reflects in myself and the other students' grade books. English is also not her first language, and although I will say even if she has a thick accent, she does speak English just as well as a natural-born citizen. However, she doesn't always pick up on comprehension, and that has led to so many problems that I can't even begin to explain. Trust me, I've tried complaining about it to no avail. Anyways, I found out that we would be having our final in 2 days when I was prepared for it to be during the actual finals week, and she did not mention it before. And I got really freaked out that I was going to flunk because even though I know the material, I know she'll grade me poorly because she flat out doesn't like me. Well, here's where I fucked up. We were having class today, and as I was having a panic attack when my ears perked up. She asked if anyone could take her to the airport this next Tuesday, and if they could, she would pay them $50. I looked around, waiting for someone to offer up, but no one did. And I sort of felt bad because even though she has been downright rude to me, it makes me sad to think this is the first year she is spending without her husband as he died last semester. She was taken aback by my volunteering, but gave me her phone number and her address at the end of class, and I told her extremely confidently that she didn't need to pay me $50 because it really wasn't that far of a drive for me. She then sort of gave me this weird look and told me that she absolutely had to pay me for the gas, as we would be going through a lot of it. I then said that our airport in our city wasn't that far, and it really wasn't any bother. She then raised her eyebrow and made her signature condescending look, before informing that she was going to the ATL airport, which is at best 2.5 hours away from me according to Apple Maps feature where you can look at the estimated time on a specific date, but I've heard Atlanta traffic is horrible, so it's probably going to be 3 hours. So I do have a final that Tuesday at 1 p.m., however. I did inform her of this and warned her it could make me late, and she might want to find someone else. But also it's a blow-off class, and his final is supposedly about 30 minutes to take, and she lives close. Also, I have not factored in whether or not she is traveling internationally, which, judging off her painfully thick Italian accent, she probably is. I haven't heard much from her about any family that lives in the States with her. If so, I assume she needs to be there 3 hours early, and from my best estimates, if I leave at 1:30 and I don't get slammed by traffic, I get her there by 4 when her flight is at 7. I also have been thinking about asking Blow-Off Professor if I can take his exam earlier because of this obligation. We'll see about that. I'm sticking to my guns. My boyfriend and my friends said that this was crazy of me to do, but I absolutely hate flaking on people, especially when she's my mom's age, and even if they're nothing alike, it still makes my heart break thinking about if my mom only had a little dog with her to make her happy, and no one to drive her to the airport and no second income to help pay for an Uber to the airport or another person to come with her on her journey. I have some things I got to do first, which includes cleaning and scrubbing my car out of any weed smell because it's been so cold outside, and unfortunately my car has taken the brunt of my stress from this class. I need to get my oil changed because it's over 1,000 miles over. When my car light went on, and I'm not trying to have my car explode on the road and die with this woman, and I need to brainstorm some topics to talk about with her because I am determined to be best friends with her by the end of this because I will undoubtedly have more courses with her throughout my time. Sorry. I know that's a lot, and I doubt anyone took the time to read all of this. If you're giving advice or commentary, don't try to convince me to back out of this. I don't have a good enough reason not to do this, and I am not the kind of person to go back on my word. TLD year. I volunteered to drive my professor to the airport not knowing that she actually meant the ATL airport, which is roughly 2.5 hours away from me, and I need her to like me. But she's also a 50-year-old Italian widow, so I don't know what to talk about, plus I have to get my car detailed because it reeks of weed. Any advice on driving to Atlanta would be appreciated and how to navigate the driving around the airport. I'm from the DFW area, so I'm very used to driving to the DFW airport, but I've heard the ATL airport is a whole other beast. Relevant commas. Escape from Elba. Feel like the benefits do not outweigh the potential costs. Most you'll get some brownie points, but you could go through all of this and end up in even worse position if things don't go swimmingly. Aquarian Dragon. When you learned it was to ATL, you could have apologized, citing you assumed it was the local airport, and you have a final that won't allow for you to leave earlier if traffic to ATL makes it necessary. It's weird that she asked students for a ride, crossing a line, especially of that nature during finals week. Ad status 9010. Is this in United States dollars? She's taking extreme advantage of you. This is inappropriate to ask of students, and definitely at that rate. $50. I would like to see what the Uber rate would be for that kind of trip. Aquarian Dragon. I live in the Houston metro. Both airports are about 30-ish miles from me, and on average about an hour to get to either on a good day. I just looked at my history. With tip, it's been $60.65. Update January 4th, 2025. I don't know if anyone cares for an update, but seeing as I had as many comments as I did upvotes, and the majority of those comments screaming and begging for me to not go through with this plan, I think you guys might like to hear that it was a success. Here are some answers to some questions. No one died. She did not smell the weed in my car. We even had a conversation about the legalization of cannabis to the extent where I don't think she suspected me to be a user at all. Yes, it was to the international airport. Yes, my GPS fucked up 1,000,000 times. We do go to a smaller school where professors are encouraged and even fired based on whether or not they do a good enough job on condiling student-professor relationships. She did offer more money even after I dropped her off. I told her no. She told me she would give me a gift from Italy. Basically, that day I accidentally said yes to drive my Italian professor to an airport 2.5 hours away from us. I put my weed out of my car and into my apartment, and I aired out my car for not 1 but 4 days with the windows down. I also regularly sprayed it with Febreze and other car scents. I then took it to a car wash, and the guy there gave me a free premium wash on my car because my card wasn't working for some reason. Shout out to Mark 1 Car Wash. I'm sorry I didn't have any cash to tip the dude because you're seriously a lifesaver. So then I got to scrub the living hell out of my car and vacuum every last square inch and each little flake of ash and fallen bud. Then that day, my laptop decided to die right when I needed to take my final that was before I needed to pick up my professor, so I was 15 minutes late and with an empty tank. But she paid for my pump, and her dog sat quietly in the back seat. I awkwardly told her she could look at my CDs if she wanted to play music because all I had was a speaker for podcasts. However, she simply said no, and that we could find other things to talk about during the car ride. And we did. We talked for 2.5 hours about social justice, international politics, traveling, life, family, and learning. It was actually the best conversation I had had in a long time. Although I did freak her out with my bad driving skills and forgot that there was a time change, so we got there at 5 and not 4 like I had planned, so we were not only stuck in work traffic but an hour late to a busy airport when her flight departed at 7. It was really refreshing to talk to someone who has gone through so much change. She grew up and learned in Italy before her late husband, who was then her boyfriend, convinced her to go to the States so he could teach at a prestigious university. Obviously, I'm not putting in real details. She has since bounced around the United States and around the world, working with different international organizations and teaching at many different good schools before she made her way to mine. I have no idea why she stays at my school, and I asked her why she has stayed there since her husband has passed this last year and all her family lives in Italy. She simply said that she loves her independence, that she loves change, and that when she feels like there is another good opportunity, she'll change again. But where she is now, she has a lot of love and support, but that love and support is also key to change. Even if you don't have a partner or someone to travel with or to, knowing that you have loved ones that are rooting for you no matter where they are in the world, that is what makes change so easy for her. Because the love never changes, even if the flight numbers do. She also told me I didn't need to live such a strict life plan. Some backstory, but I was born in France, which makes it much easier to get citizenship there since the nation recognizes that I have a stronger connection to their country than someone who was not born in their country. I sort of always thought that I would just do my undergrad, go to law school, and live near my parents and my boyfriend so I could be with them and take care of my family. When I told her my plan, she tried her best not to wrinkle her nose and told me that although it's unsolicited advice, my connection to France, a strong country in the EU, was too good of an opportunity to not pass up. After all, if I did have French citizenship, I would be eligible to work, live, vote, and have access to services in any and all EU, EAA countries. She told me that living near my family was fine, and that she understood that well enough, but that I also have other family to take care of them, and that she doesn't want me to fall into what so many women do. I agreed with her when she said that she has only heard women say that they need to live near their parents or their partner because someone has to be the caretaker, and that it's never men opting out of opportunities or bigger horizons because they're worried about getting married or taking care of their parents. At the end of it, I felt like I had thought about things I had never given myself the room to think about because I didn't want to dream about things that wouldn't happen. But now, I know that they could happen, and that I have more opportunities than most to live a crazy life. And I'm glad I talked to someone who loved change so much, because I was able to finally understand why someone could. Also, I officially signed up to take her film class next semester. Hey, TTL.dr. I volunteered to drive 5 hours total for my professor, and it was the best car ride of my life. Moral of the story, think twice before you flake on your Italian professor to drive her to the Atlanta airport because you might have more in common with her than you think. Relevant comment? Gisted. I really like how considerate you were to air out your car for 4 days of any weed smell. You have a good heart, OP. How will she get back? Are you going to drive her home from the airport too, or does she have other arrangements? QT Monster? It was really nice of you to air out your car before you drove her. I'm so glad you were able to have such a great and meaningful conversation with someone having infinitely more life experience than you do right now. It's always nice to see older women giving the best advice. I hope you're able to think through it, and I hope this changes your relationship with her for the better. Having a solid mentor is priceless. Lost in Spaz? I'm glad you followed through and also realized that professors can actually be nice. That being said, she did not smell the weed in my car. We even had a conversation about the legalization of cannabis to the extent where I don't think she suspected me to be a user at all. And they say pot doesn't kill brain cells, lolulo, she noticed. You're like one of those people who thinks they can smoke in a non-smoking room, leave the windows open, and no one will know. But a non-smoker will notice within 30 seconds of being in the room. That car wouldn't stop smelling if you aired it out for a year. Story 6. Is it okay to spray cleaner on a paper towel just to smell it? September 1st, 2024. Very stupid question, be kind. I don't want to huff, but I'm obsessed with the smell of this cleaner, so I sprayed it on a paper towel and smelled it. Then I sprayed more and smelled again. Now I have the paper towel square basically on my chest, like on top of my boobs, not in some weird bent position, so the smell is like a very, very light perfume while I'm laying back on my couch watching TV doing phone shit. I don't feel high, it just smells beyond good. I don't want to be high from it, so I'm hoping this isn't considered huffing but IDK. This has never happened before. I used to smoke weed and drink too much, and have been sober 3 and 1 years. My best friend thinks I'm obsessed with the smell cues. I'm so boringly sober. Boringly being my word. So yeah, am I safe? Edit. This is the cleaner. Edit. 1 hour later. I've been well informed and understand more on how dangerous this is. Thank you to the kind people that didn't come just to be rude. Top comments, some of OOP's comments. Sufu Doom. What you're doing is dangerous. Here is the MSDS safety sheet. OP. Oh, thank you for finding this. Even more details, I really appreciate it. I honestly wasn't sure since I wasn't getting high. But it's really helpful to know it's dangerous even to just have there to breathe in like it's some candle. Hunk Hogan. For future reference, just assume it's unsafe to breathe any chemicals, especially if it comes in an aerosol canister and regardless of how it smells. OP. Very true and good point. It's so simple, and I do feel dumb on this, but it is what it is. Had an airhead moment. Pun not intended. Thanks for commenting, I appreciate it. The Beats and Reptor. It's not healthy, but it's not as pearl-clutching worthy as some of these replies suggest. I wouldn't make a habit of it. And if you find that smelling intense things like that help calm you down, maybe try something made for it instead, like Vicks inhalers or other nasal inhalers. At the very least, they're less toxic. FUIWW, what you are doing isn't huffing. Huffing is a lot different for most things other than like gasoline. Even nail polish is put into a bag typically, and airplane glue as well, IRA. You aren't purposely stopping the fumes from dispersing or putting your mouth up to a canister to inhale. There's a reason things like air duster and cleaning supplies say to use in a well-ventilated space, which you kind of are. But there are still toxins that you don't want to be ingesting regularly, even if not as intensely as to qualify for huffing. OOP, dude, thank you. Your comment is the most down-to-earth, and while there are informative replies that I appreciate, it's corny how there are a few others claiming I am huffing, disregarding the actual definition of the word. I stopped once I got enough further info, but I still didn't think I was on the level of getting cancer and ruining my brain beyond repair, the way a few comments claim. Thanks for putting it rationally and calmly. Birdie Sue _007. Well, that's definitely not safe, especially since it's a foaming aerosol. The propellant can and will deprive your brain of oxygen. This can cause neurological problems very quickly. The scent isn't worth blindness, inability to taste or smell, or incontinence. Try experimenting with various bar soaps. Also, you might be able to find that some dishwashing liquids smell similar. OOP. Thanks, those are good suggestions. And definitely important consequences to have confirmed. I stopped once that was more accurately expressed in this post, thanks to those like you. Deep_investigator 283. I'm pregnant and I crave the smell of pine sol. I told my doctor at last apt, and they said probably an iron deficiency. Who knows? OOP. That's so interesting. Yeah, the source and reason are a mystery. Update post January 10th, 2025, 4 months later. Title. Posted my stupid question here 4 months ago. Wanted to inform people that an obsession with the smell of cleaner can be severe anemia. If this isn't allowed mods, I totally understand. Just really wanted to post in the same sub that my previous post, can be found on my profile, here was answered in more depth after I got blood work done at my doctor's. Turned out it's anemia, so I've been taking iron, ferrous sulfate, for almost 2 months, and I've already gotten over my obsession with the smell of cleaner. Really wanted to share this to inform anyone that might not be aware of this, and might feel stupid to come here asking about it like I did, ha ha ha. Some of OOP's comments. Cosmic Dog Dust. This is so fascinating. Did you go to the doctor because of your obsession with the smell? Presumably that wasn't the only sign that you were anemic? I had a friend who was severely anemic and couldn't stop chewing on ice cubes. Apparently intensely craving crunchy stuff is also linked to anemia. And then I had a friend who was severely anemic and had no symptoms at all, other than being more tired than usual during exercise. Our bodies are so mysterious. OP, isn't it? Fascinating. I was so surprised when the obsession started and more surprised when it ended. There were definitely other signs. I was extremely exhausted to the point of having to nap once or twice a day, like nodding out anywhere I was as if I were on a bunch of painkillers, huh? And I had migraines 5/7 days a week for 4 straight months. I'm prone to them all my life, but would have maybe 1, 2 a month. The iron deficient amount was beyond debilitating. It also had my heartbeat constantly higher than usual, 122 on average, and I was extremely short of breath because there wasn't enough hemoglobin, the protein in red blood cells that carries oxygen. I wasn't able to work or socialize with how bad those symptoms were. It was terrible. The ice obsession is interesting. Glad I didn't have that coast the cold fucks with my sensitive teeth. The body really is full of wonders. Effective_fish_3402. This is some good shit right here. Your previous post was gold. Did someone there suggest blood work? I didn't read all of the comments. Some of the judgy snark on there was funny. You handled it pretty well, too. OP. Haha, thank you. I definitely got some understandable responses from a few assholes. Nobody had suggested blood work, but I always make sure to seek in-person medical attention when I'm asking for health-related stuff online. I like to get thoughts while I'm waiting for appointments. With the cleaner obsession especially, because I started getting migraines 5/7 days a week and nodding out as though I were drugged. Story 7. ATA for leaving a family dinner early because my mill told people I was RP'd. January 10th, 2025. Taboo mention of sexual assault. I've never used Reddit before. My situation happened a couple days ago, and I saw a TikTok on people reading from it and saw the comments and how they give advice, so I thought I'd try it out. Bear with me with knowing all the terminology. I'm 26 and my hubby is 27. We've been together since we were 16, 17. Early on, I loved his mother. She was the sweetest woman ever. She welcomed me in with open arms and always made good company. Of course, like everyone, she had her moments, like getting a little too mad at a cashier not understanding her needs, or making a joke that made people a little uncomfortable. But everyone always brushed it off because she's just an amazing person. At the age of 24, me and my husband got engaged, and I don't know how to explain it, but it's like his mother's persona just flipped, like there was a switch on the back of her head. When we told her we were engaged, she got pale and looked like we had told her someone had died. Hubby got weirded out like this and called her out on it. She just said she had to go, and we didn't hear from her for about 3 weeks. We had lunch together often, as family means a lot to me and my husband, so when we got stood up for our lunch date, we worried. Maybe my husband came off a little harsh, so we went to check on her. Hubby's dad let us in, but had to talk to us first. He had began to tell us that she was shaken up by the proposal, saying it wasn't how things were meant to be. Hearing this, my husband got mad at his mother, implying that she had always thought of their relationship as temporary. He went to their room with me and his father following behind. We had found her coddled up with baby pictures of him crying. This was really disturbing for me, and I excused myself. I was extremely confused and hurt that my soon-to-be mother-in-law thought of our relationship like that. My father-in-law consoled me and said, "For whatever it's worth, I believe there is a little string bonding you and my son together. Don't listen to her." This stuck with me and made me cry. I still remember it to this day. My MEL proceeded to text me that I had taken away her baby boy, that no one could replace the love they share. Yes, I know a mother's love isn't replaceable, but in my opinion, a mother and wife should not be in the same category to compete with each other. The love they show is completely different, and the love that's given to them is completely different too. She goes on to tell me that it was just meant to be him and her against the world. She has 3 other children. I didn't respond because it just weirds me out to think if she always felt this way. Back when I was a little girl, a parent of a child I was friends with raped and tortured me. I used torture lightly. He burnt my legs and privates and dug into my skin with the heated-up head of the lighter. My hubby knew this very early on, and often had to take a few hits because I had panic attacks, especially when we became intimate. He went out of his way to make sure I was loved and appreciated. He kissed all the parts of my body, including my scars. He was extremely protective, in a way where he only worried when something happened for him to be. He took hits from men for me and shouted at whoever he needed to say I am in love with this man is an understatement. My mill knew what happened to me and cried when we told her. Fast forward a bit, some space and talks later, his mother tolerated me. The sting that comes with this relationship change isn't describable. We were attending a family dinner where we planned on announcing a pregnancy. We had cooked words into the food saying who each person was going to be, e.g., "You're my auntie." Most caught on, my little niece caught on first, and then my mill. She became silent, which we thought was for the better, honestly. After we ate and were just talking, she chimed in asking, "Is it really my son's baby?" Before I could say, "Excuse," my husband yelled it instead. My Emil says that due to me letting another man touch me, how is she sure I wasn't weak enough to let it happen again? While my husband was arguing with her, I just got up and left. My husband ran after me cussing his mother out. My FIL left too. People soon started saying they had to go as well as it was getting late. It was 6:30. I later got a message from my mother-in-law getting mad at me for leaving and embarrassing her. I don't think I was wrong for what I did, but I'm starting to think maybe I should have just stayed and left more appropriately. "Ada," he added, because I can't keep up with all the lovely comments. Me and our baby are no contact, and she won't see her grandchild. But my husband is keeping her number muted, because we think having some way of communicating so better. I would never leave my husband if he does try to communicate. He's been with me through a world of hurt. This is a world of hurt for him. I'd never leave him. Just know that if you get an upvote on a comment, it was probably me. I can't thank you all enough. I don't really know where to post an update, if there is one, but I'm sure I'll figure it out, maybe. Edit. I'm sure I'll have an update at some time. If someone could comment how is make an update, that would be lovely, because I have no idea how to use this app. Update is posted. ITA has no consensus bot. OP was NTA. Relevant comment. Commenter 1. If your husband doesn't cut his mother off completely and permanently, you need to cut him off completely and permanently. OP. I wouldn't go that far. He has been with me through thick and thin. I wouldn't leave him if he chose not to cut her off. We have talked about how contact would be low, but I would never want them to not have a relationship. I'd like to give her a chance because, as I stated, family is so important to us. But he has said he would do whatever he needs to do to make me feel safe. Commenter 2. Your NTA she is. I'm sorry she has treated you so disrespectfully. I'm glad your husband and FIL have supported you. A mother's love is one thing, but she should not be comparing it to the love between a man and a woman. She should not be trying to shame you. ESP in public for SA. I would steer clear of her. OOP. I have avoided her as much as possible. I haven't blacked her number as I didn't want to give her some sort of leverage for treating me like this. I've just muted in messages, so I don't even know if she does. Commenter 3. I'm sorry and honestly, she shouldn't be near your child and you need to limit your interactions with her. Talk to your husband about it. OP. We have. It was the first thing I said when we got in the car that I'm not letting a ride nutcase around my baby, and he immediately agreed. Commenter 4. Sounds like she needs a serious mental health intervention. Why hasn't your husband's family done anything about that yet? NTA, obviously. OOP. It's still fairly new, and I think it's more just people are shocked. I have gotten messages apologizing for her behavior, though. OOP should go low contact with her Fael because he had been failing her husband and not getting his wife help. OOP. To defend my Fael because he's amazing, she was getting better, and paying for those kind of things gets really expensive, and he saw a change in her behavior, hence why we were comfortable going to a dinner with them. He did mention about getting her fixed, so I hope she has help soon. OOP explained how her MIL's relationships are with her other children, husband's siblings. OOP. She's more calm with them. They definitely know my husband is the favorite, and I know it must have hurt them a lot. My husband did apologize early in our teen years for never seeing it. Her other children don't like her that much, so yeah, it's more neutral and calm. Update. January 15th, 2025, 5 days later. TW sexual assault mention. First, I want to thank everyone so much for all the amazing and sweet comments. Quick edit, this update was written over the course of a couple days. So, for example, I said my husband kept her number, but then I said she was blocked. I'm so sorry for any confusion that this causes. If you've kept up with my edits or replies on my original post, you'll know that I was low contact with my MIL. I've now gone full no contact. My hubby keeps her number muted just in case something happens. My baby will never meet her grandma unless a professional tells me that she won't act like that anymore. I know some of you think I should divorce my husband if he doesn't go full NC. Respectfully, that's some advice I won't listen to. He has been through so much with me, and to leave because he has to make a hard decision isn't what I agree with. We both think that keeping some way of communicating is what's best. Doesn't mean we are going to talk to her at all. Please don't comment, "That's stupid," or "You're going to get a world of hurt." It's purely for emergency purposes. His parents are getting old. We've had to come to terms with needing to keep her number in case something happens. To clear this up too, my Fael never took her somewhere at the beginning because she had gotten better, hence why we went to a dinner with her in the first place. Now he is looking into people to help MIL, and I completely understand why he wouldn't just drop and divorce her. This is real life, and he made a promise to her to never leave when things got rocky. He may be blind and overly hopeful, but he is a man of his word. Also, all the comments saying what you would have done to my MIL made me and my husband laugh a lot, so thank you so much. Please know I saw all the comments and I loved them all. Now for the real update. So I had fully blocked my MIL number, and she didn't appreciate this at all. It started off with messages to my husband about it, then letters, home visits, and then a rock through our window. We have no evidence that it was her, but we have our suspicions. My FIL hired a professional to talk to my MIL, and she didn't agree at first, then was willing when the therapist said she wouldn't see her son or his baby ever. When she said this, my FIL proceeded to yell that she has no place in suggesting his wife might see her son and child again without consulting us. He especially got mad that I wasn't included in this threat of no contact. He fired her on the spot. We were on call with my FIL to heed how things went. We found someone else that understands our position and wants to help give answers to my Mills family. Her first session went okay. She isn't keen on the therapist idea, but I think she just remembers what was said to her a couple days ago. She's been calling my husband and leaving voicemails crying, saying I'm a witch for taking him away from her, and that this isn't how it was supposed to go. We send every voicemail to her therapist, and she's given us some possible reasonings like bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, or schizophrenia. We've continued to get letters in the mail. They differ from crying like paragraphs. To the way she plans on getting her son back, a lot were very violent to me and my baby. My hubby isn't standing for this anymore, so we're going to be moving soon, and my husband has fully blocked her. This has been really hard on my husband because he's having to grieve someone who's gone, yet still alive. I'll update more if anything happens and how the move goes. Relevant comment. OOP and her husband should consider about security cameras for the house and document everything. OOP. I'll bring this up with my husband as soon as he gets home. Thank you, X. Is OOP's husband the youngest of his siblings? OOP, one other boy and 2 other girls. He is the youngest. Commenter 1. She still may need a medical exam with neurological focus workup. I say this not as her provider, but as a medical professional, so this is just a general suggestion anyone can make. OP fair. I think we were thinking more on a mental point, but we will definitely take her to a doctor. Thank you. Commenter 2. Why didn't the lot of you get her assessed years ago? When your first post time jumped, I was floored. It's like you opened the door to find the room on fire and decided to contain it with misting spray bottles and some rubber mats for years, then got surprised each and every time it flared up into the hall. The woman has been on fire this entire time. You don't keep calm and carry on with rapid and destructive behavioral changes. OOP. That's just incorrect, I've stated multiple times. When we found her crying with my husband's baby photos, we were planning on her getting help, but she got better on her own. Hence why we were comfortable going to a dinner with her. We thought, and she did too, that this random outburst was just her realizing that her son was grown. We didn't get help because she got better. Now it's happening again, and we are because it clearly wasn't what we thought. Commenter 3. Wait, did her first therapist say it was you guys at fault? I'm glad she is getting the help and she has her husband to support her through it. It also makes it a buffer so she hopefully won't go to a more violent behavior pattern. But if you guys are in contact with him, just make sure she isn't. I seen a lot of great advice in the comments. I just want to say how strong you and your husband are, and I wish you all the good will and love in your lives going forward. Even through it's shit and hard, it should be worth it in the end. Eat it. I haven't seen this said, but in Australia and you are married, you are entitled to use either last name. Maybe request that your chosen name be used isn't of your legal in some or all aspects so you are kept safe. I kept my last name when married as I didn't wish to go through all the hoops to change everything. But I can still set up things with my husband's last name if I so wish, and go to a courthouse to change it if I was in true danger. OOP. Her previous therapist basically gave her a promised ultimatum, saying that if she goes to therapy, she will see her son and grandchild. Not only is this super unprofessional, it's also 10x worse when she doesn't consult us about this. What she had said, we would never go through with, so we just have an even angrier person. And no, sadly, we live in Canada. I was born in Australia and I miss it so much. Not hating on Canada, just love Australia too much. Commenter 4. I must be mistaken. I thought you said your father-in-law was there and then reported what happened to you and your husband over the phone. You actually heard her say she wouldn't be able to see her son or grandchild? If so, that's very much out of line for a counselor to say. Perhaps I just interpreted what you said as her trying to persuade her to get help, as a, if you don't do this, this could be the consequences. I can't believe, I do believe, I'm not calling you a liar, a therapist would say something that out of line right from the get-go. OOP, yep, me and my husband listen over the phone during her house visits. So yes, we did hear her and our FIL say she's out of line. It could come across as persuasion, but just like how a doctor can't promise that you'll be okay, any type of mental health care worker can't promise/give an ultimatum for something like that. It makes my MIL believe that just attending therapy means she will get back her baby boy, and when we clearly won't do that, we will just have an angry mill again, and we're trying to get her to not want to hurt me, so me not being included in this ultimatum was also very unprofessional in the sense that we're trying to get her help because she seems to hate my guts. But her CS worker is actively only including the people she doesn't have a problem with. I have no idea if that makes sense. Story 8. Aida for canceling the plans for Thanksgiving after my parents called my brother's baby their first grandchild. November 11th, 2022. A 32F, have been with my wife Ava, 34F, for 8 years now, but we've been married for 5. She was a single mom of 3 kids when we started dating. She had 2 daughters, now 10 and 12, and a son, now 16. I've watched these kids grow up. I've read the bedtime stories, done bath time, the first days of school, PTA meetings, all of it. I very much consider them to be my kids, and they've been calling me mom for almost 6 years now. My brother Ivan, 28M, just had a baby girl with his fiancée Sarah, 27F. I love my niece, and my kids adore their cousin. My kids have been the only grandchildren on my side of the family since Ava and I got together, and there's never been a moment where the kids and my wife were treated like they didn't belong. My brother is their uncle, my mom and dad are their nana and pop. The kids see my family as their family, and I always thought that my family felt the same way about them. The kids and I were over at my brother's house just hanging out, and my parents ended up dropping by with gifts for my niece. Ivan laughed when he saw the toys and told our mom and dad that they were going to end up spoiling her rotten. My mom said since my niece is their first grandchild, of course they have to spoil her. My kids were sitting in the living room with all of us, and my youngest daughter looked hurt when she realized what my mother said. My son and my 12-year-old didn't fully react to it, but I could tell it bothered the both of them too. Sarah spoke up and said, "Oh, you mean first grandbaby, not first grandchild." My dad shook his head and replied that my niece was their first grandchild. I didn't want my kids to keep sitting there and listening to that, so I handed my son my keys and told him to wait in the car with his sisters. When they were gone, I asked my parents why the hell they'd say that my kids weren't their grandchildren, and my mom said they couldn't be their grandchildren because they weren't really my children. My wife and I were going to be hosting Thanksgiving at our house this year, but I told my parents that if they didn't view my kids as their family, then they could just host a meal at their own house with their real family while I spent the holiday with mine. I left before they could say anything else to me, and my wife and I have reiterated to the children that they will always be my kids, and I will always be their other mom, regardless of our DNA. My brother is pissed at me now because he thinks I reacted too harshly and that I should try to see where my parents are coming from. My mom texted saying that she and my dad love the kids, but they still aren't their grandchildren, and she hopes that we can come to understand that because she doesn't want this to ruin my niece's first Thanksgiving. I haven't replied back. I meant what I said, but I'm worried that maybe I'm reacting too harshly. Ite info. I adopted all 3 of the kids about 4 years ago, so they aren't just my parents' step-grandchildren. Even if I hadn't legally adopted them, they'd still be my kids in my eyes. Edit note 2. My wife's parents don't have a relationship with the kids. When my wife came out, they pretty much stopped speaking with her entirely. Their bio-dad is not involved and neither is his family. He lost his rights to the children before Ava and I started dating. The 10-year-old has never met him. The 12-year-old doesn't remember him, and the 16-year-old wants nothing to do with him. My parents wanted the kids to call them Nana and Pop. I didn't make the kids start calling them that. Relevant comments. The worst part of it for me is that they said it in front of them. I'd still be upset knowing they thought it, but the look on my youngest daughter's face when she heard my mother say that just broke my heart. I tend to go mama bear whenever I even think someone has stepped out of line with the kids, so I was worried that maybe I was doing too much in my reaction. My brother still feels like I should talk it out with them, but I don't know that I could forgive it honestly. I've been out as a lesbian since I was a teenager, but I always sort of had this idea that I'd never find love and settle down. Then I met Ava and those kids, and my whole point of view changed. 6 months into dating Ava, I realized I was keeping snacks in my bag for the kids LOL. I guess maybe my parents could have just gotten used to the idea of me never getting married or having a family, but they never made it seem like they weren't happy for me when I told them about Ava and our kids. They said they wanted the kids to call them Nana and Pop, but I haven't spoken to them since this whole thing happened, so I don't know if they still want the kids to call them that. The kids aren't exactly jumping at the bit to see them now, though, so I doubt they'd call them those names anytime soon. November 12, 2022. Comment. You can put as much emphasis on DNA as you want to, but at the end of the day, those are my children. It doesn't matter that I didn't grow them myself, that they never came out of me, that they don't share my genetics. They call me their mom, and that's what I am to them. If I ever had gotten pregnant and made a baby myself, I know I'd love that kid the same way I do my other 3. Being a mom is more than making a child. It's being there for all the moments after. I'm fortunate enough to have been allowed those moments and to have been given the title of mother. Yes, biology is a thing, and yes, I know DNA means a lot to some people, but it doesn't matter to me. It wasn't some happenstance of nature that allowed me to be their other mom. I am their other mom because I chose to be, and because they, and my wife, of course, chose to let me. It's not a substitution because I don't believe that there is one default or correct way of creating a family. Even gay penguins are out there adopting each other's eggs. If Mother Nature has the penguins doing it, I'd argue that my family structure fits the bill of naturally occurring just fine. OOP was voted NTA. Update post, November 17th, 2022. Hi. I thought I'd just leave you all with an update here since it doesn't look as though things are going to change anytime soon. My wife and I talked with all 3 of the kids separately and asked them what they wanted to do for Thanksgiving, if they wanted my parents there, if they still wanted to see them. My son and oldest daughter have made it very clear that they are mostly upset at my parents for hurting their younger sister's feelings, and they felt that if my parents apologized to her and tried to make it up to her, then they'd be okay with seeing them still. My 10-yo took it the hardest out of the 3. For her, they're the only grandparents she's ever known, and this whole thing really crushed her. My wife and I explained to her, and to all of the kids, that none of this was her fault, that she didn't cause it, and that we're both equally her moms, and she is equally our kid no matter what DNA says. She told us that she didn't want to talk to my parents, but that she wanted me to make sure they knew that she wasn't mad at them, she was just hurt. I called my dad and told him how hurt my kids were by what was said by him and my mom, and that I would appreciate it if they apologized to the kids for being inconsiderate of their presence and their feelings. My dad said that he and my mother never intended to hurt the kids' feelings, but they can't change the fact that those aren't their grandchildren, and that the kids shouldn't be so upset at the truth. I hung up on him. I know I can't make them view my kids as their grandchildren, but the fact that both of my parents are being so inconsiderate of the fact that they seriously upset my children just makes this whole thing even worse. I texted my brother and told him that I was sorry if he felt like he was being put in the middle of something, but as a parent, my priority is my kids, and I won't apologize for protecting them from what I think will hurt them further. I guess Sarah talked to him or something because he apologized to me and said he'd like for his daughter to have Thanksgiving with her aunts and her cousins. I did also thank Sarah separately for offering my parents and out and trying to salvage the situation. She's a total sweetheart and I love her. Thanksgiving is going to be hosted at my house just without my parents there. It's unfortunate, but like I said, my kids are my priority, and I refuse to have them sit at a table with people who can't even take a minute to show them some empathy or basic kindness. I didn't expect that post to take off the way it did, so I wasn't able to respond to all of you because there were just so many. But I really appreciated all of your feedback and suggestions. Story 9. I think my girlfriend has been trying to get me fired from all my jobs. I'm shaken. Please help me. I'm M24, and I've been with GF, F29, let's call her Janice, for 2.5 years. I just finished my education when we started dating, and I've been doing all sorts of jobs since, sometimes 2 at a time. I did this to expand my resume and gather job experience. I worked in cafes, bookstores, a library, a grocery store, and as an English tutor. Most of those jobs lasted about 3 to 5 months. My shortest stay was 2.5 weeks, my longest 8 months. But since I didn't have a hard time applying for new positions, I tried to block it out, though it was kind of eating me up internally. People called to complain about me. People left bad reviews about me. People used my employee Wi-Fi access to look up sketchy things on the internet under my name. Former employees called to inform them about me, right name and all, and much more subtle stuff that I couldn't disprove. But I was too anxious to do anything about it. I just told my girlfriend. She comforted me. She supported me every time I got my life ruined by these people. But I kept going, though they kept finding me. Fast forward to this week. I currently hold a part-time position at a bakery. I've been working there for 2.5 months. It's going okay, but my manager approached me about something regarding our Google reviews. Someone was complaining about an employee, and their description of them could only really fit me. It was on a day where we're pretty short of staff, so I could have been the only person in the store on that day for all I know. Anyway, their review contained some pretty elaborate and nasty comments about me. This has happened on 1 or 2 of my jobs already. I told my manager that it was all pretty bogus and that someone had a vendetta against me, as it has happened before. She believed me and told me that she'll dismiss the comment. On my break, I checked out the review myself. Their username was kind of stupid. I'm not going to type it out here since I still work there, but I'll just call them Mick Myrtle, as it was in the same range of sounds, kind of fake, but not really. Anyway, I come home but don't tell Janice about it. She has heard it all before, so I didn't see the point in complaining about another time I almost lost my position. We chat, all is well, and she leaves the room. Her phone is on the table, and suddenly she gets a notification or an email of some sort from Google. I don't remember what it said exactly, but the pop-up read something along the lines of, "Mick Myrtle, manager has responded to your review." My heart dropped. I've been trying to ignore it since. This was 2 days ago. It just fit in the picture of bad reviews. It fit in the picture of the phoned complaints my workplaces have received about me in the past. It fits in the picture of all the sketchy things I've been fired for. Why would she do that, though? I'm looking for an explanation. This literally can't be. She's the only thing keeping me sane. I don't know what to do. Update on the post, October 20th, 12. Hello, people who are still invested. I'm sorry for not updating you guys earlier. A lot has been going on. First of all, yes, we broke up. That's why I'll be referring to her as my ex from now on. Anyway, let's start from the beginning. On the Monday of the following week, I couldn't take the uncertainty anymore. I told my ex I needed her booking account to book a train ticket to visit my dad for a few days. She complied, and when she was in the shower getting ready for work, I booked my ticket and started looking through her emails. After some digging, I found an email to herself which contained a spreadsheet file. I sent the file to myself, printed it out, and took a screenshot. Why? The spreadsheet contained about every single information about me that there was. Numbers, emails, passwords, work times, colleagues, their numbers and social medias, as well as some emails and passwords that she used for accounts to ruin my life with. Everything was on there, conveniently sorted for her to ruin my life as efficiently as possible. When she left for work, I decided it would be best to immediately pack my stuff. Nothing that mattered would be left behind. I felt like a wanted man, like I was being hunted despite nothing being seemingly out of place. I called my boss, told her I would be taking some time off from work, and headed out to see my dad. Needless to say, he was the sanity I needed. I cried about everything I saw. I panicked for a whole 2 days straight about how my life was ruined, and I didn't know what to do. He had to sleep on the couch in the guest room because I was so scared of my ex coming in. He handled it like a champ. I love you, Dad. He called the police, a lawyer, and most recently a therapist for me, because I was in the most horrible state of my entire life. We're currently sorting out the legal stuff. I haven't talked to my ex except for letting her know it was over and that she's a sick psychopath. My dad handled the rest. I changed all my passwords, and I'm now looking for a place to live. Sorry for the brief update, my mind is tangled. Please ask questions if you want to know more. Edit. By the way, thank you to every single person who gave me advice, talked to me over DMs, and was generally concerned about me. I appreciate every single one of you. Went back on here and saw a bunch of DMs, October 22nd, 03. And some of y'all came here quite recently. I've answered all of the DMs so far, and before I let the next batch of people wait, you'd think there wouldn't be after 2 years, I'll give you a quick update. Spoiler. It isn't that interesting. TLDR, we ended up not taking her to court over it. This is quite controversial, considering the abhorrent things she's done to me, but I do not regret this decision. The satisfaction of seeing her get punished would have been overshadowed by the sheer amount of dread, anxiety, and fear I would have faced in those court hearings. I was a nervous mess. I couldn't eat for weeks without throwing up. My dad had to settle most of the important stuff because I physically couldn't. Thank you, Dad. On the bright side, our lawyers settled the situation beautifully in private, and I haven't had any problems with her since, that I am aware of. I've moved houses, got a stable job, and found the closure and justice I was looking for through therapy. I hope she did as well. We've had zero contact since then, and I still haven't read any of the messages she sent me those years ago. Of course, I'm nowhere near done with my journey. I still have all of my social media accounts set to private and insist on keeping a low profile online. I still get anxiety, especially when there's problems at work. But I haven't had any panic attacks in months, and my therapist has been great. I don't know how she's doing. I don't know if she's moved on or if she's seen this story float around the web. Hello YouTube, TikTok, and Snapchat. I don't know how much she knows about how my life is currently going, but nothing's happened since then that I could attribute to her schemes. Sorry if this update is kind of a jumbled mess. I just woke up and I've repressed a lot of what happened. Thank you all for your kind messages. Cheers. Story 10. Aida for making my husband choose between me and his son. The 5th of June 2020. I, 39F, am married to Dave, 44M, and he has a son named Avery, 19M, and an ex-wife named Diana, 42F. Avery has always been hostile towards me and blamed me for his parents' divorce, despite his dad not meeting me until 3 years after. I have tried my best to spend time with Avery, and I've been respectful of all the boundaries he set with me. Avery still hates me. It was fine with me, as long as he didn't treat me like shit because he hates me. Well, Avery started treating me like shit when he found out his dad was marrying me. He threw a fit, saying his dad needed his permission before marrying me, and that he wouldn't come to the wedding. His dad and I let it slide, and sat down with Avery and Diana to try and figure out why he was upset. It didn't work, and Avery refused to see us until the wedding. At Dave and I's wedding, Avery objected to us being married in front of everyone, and asked to make a speech in front of everyone later in the night. In his speech, he told everyone what a horrible person I was, and that I was responsible for his parents' divorce, and that I was a dirty homewrecker. Dave drove Avery back to Diana's, but the damage was done, and several wedding guests assumed Avery was telling the truth. My wedding night was ruined because of this, and a good part of my family refuses to speak to me despite me explaining to them that this was not the case. Avery has continued to treat me like shit since then. He got mad at me once, so he dropped my cat off at a shelter 2 towns over and refused to tell me where he was until he'd been put down. I wanted to keep my wedding dress after the wedding, and he tore it to shreds. Just 2 examples. I'll give more if anyone wants them. Finally, Wednesday, Dave and I had Avery over for dinner because Avery actually wanted to come. Long story short, when I went to get dessert and Dave wasn't there, Avery confronted me in the kitchen and began screaming at me and told me that I was a horrible person, as well as some other not-so-nice things. Dave eventually came in, Avery left, and I got pissed. I told Dave that I was tired of his son constantly attacking me and treating me like shit because of something he knows didn't happen, and that I'd put up with his bullshit for the last 6 years. I told him that he had to make a choice between me and Avery because I wasn't putting up with Avery's shit any longer, and if it was a requirement of being married to Dave, I'd be filing for divorce. Dave told me it wasn't fair to make him make this decision, and I told him it might not have been fair. But it wasn't fair of him to let his son harass and attack me for years. Aida for making my husband choose between me and his son? Verdict, NTM. Edit 1. I've told Dave that I didn't want to be around Avery several times, and got ignored. I was told that we'd go to therapy to try and sort things out, and it never happened. Edit 2. I don't know why Avery blames me for the divorce. If your question is about that, I can't answer you. Al, how do I divorce my husband? The 25th of June, 2020. I, 39F, want to file for divorce from my husband, 44M, who has kept me in an abusive situation for the last 6 years. My husband has never put his hands on me, but has allowed his son, 19M, to abuse me for the entire time we've been together. His son started out with screaming at me constantly whenever I was around him, and then it went to destroying my things as well as my cat. Eventually, it got to where he began threatening to harm me, and actually harming me. To make a long story short, my husband's son stabbed me about 2 weeks ago, and after getting out of the hospital, I ran. I know I'm not safe with my husband anymore. I've been too much of a pushover to his son, and my husband refuses to protect me. It's going to end up with his son killing me, so I'm doing what I can to protect myself. I'm working on getting a restraining order against his son, and I need to know how to divorce my husband. I've never been divorced. I never wanted to be divorced. And I have no clue how to even start filing for divorce. So my question is, how do I divorce my husband? An update. The 31st of July 2020. Since Ida doesn't allow violence, this update is being posted to my profile. To start, about 2 weeks after my post on Ada, Avery stabbed me. Dave allowed him over to spend time with him, and I was making myself lunch. To make a long story short, Avery grabbed a knife from the knife block and I had to be rushed to the hospital. Filed a police report, there wasn't enough evidence to make an arrest, and Dave was furious with me. As soon as I was released, I ran. I'm currently staying with my sister and am safe, thank you, everyone who asked. I filed for divorce, and I'm working on getting a restraining order. I'm also going to work on getting myself into therapy once the world isn't going batshit. Though that might take a while. I definitely need it. To those who told me that I made the post up for karma, thank you, it was totally obviously made up for karma, sir. Also, to those who are calling me just as bad for not leaving right away, specifically Joe Nanimus in the comment section of Mr. Desert Fox's video on my post, I know. Now, at least, I'm a huge fucking pushover and way too much of an optimist for my own good. I'll answer some questions from various places, specifically the AITA post. I would have answered them there, but the post was locked because people can't be civil. What age was Avery when Dave and I got married? He was 17. I met Dave and Avery when he was 13. I dated Dave for 4 years and have been married to Dave for 2 years. How did Avery just drop my cat off at a shelter? The shelters around where I live are high kill. My guess is that he dropped my cat off and claimed he was a stray. Then he waited a month and told me that he was the one who got rid of my cat. What aren't you telling? You've left out a lot of the story. You won't tell anyone what you've done that is probably just as bad, etc. Here's what I left out. When I met Avery, I was very upfront with him. I told him I wasn't his mom, and I wouldn't act like his mom. Then he started becoming hostile and openly hateful of me. At first it was just him screaming and throwing tantrums and stealing little things, like things from my small snack stash, little trinkets of mine, small gifts his dad sometimes got me, etc. Then it went to him destroying things like taking photos off the wall and throwing them against the ground as hard as he could, sticking things into the garbage disposal, dumping makeup into the toilet, and eventually stabbing the couch with a pair of scissors. Eventually, it turned to full-on threats. I lost my temper with him every so often and would call Diana in front of him to tell her about what he was doing. The most parenting I would do was send him to his room if he was destroying something. When he dropped my cat off at the shelter, I screamed at him and cried. I told him he was a horrible person. After he fucked up my wedding, the next time I saw him, I asked him what the fuck he was doing and got in a screaming match with him. So to sum up the answer to that question, not much. I can count on one hand the amount of times I've actually been mean to him, as in sending him to his room or getting in a screaming match with him. It was left out because of the character limit of the AITA post. Why did Dave and Diana divorce? When Diana came to visit me in the hospital, I asked, and this is her answer. Dave wouldn't be a parent to Avery, as in he wanted to be more of Avery's friend than a parent, and he was never home. Dave works from around 6 in the morning to 6 in the evening and passes out pretty quickly after he gets home. Why didn't I leave after my cat was put down? No clue, I should have left. How did Avery get the mic to make a toast after objecting? Dave thought his precious angel was just having a hard time and would shape up. I'll answer any other questions if you have them. I've been asked to update, so here's the update. Update #2, the 24th of June, 2021. Officially been divorced for 3 months and just got my restraining order against the jackass's crazy kid, who is currently waiting for a court date because he broke into his mother's house. Avery tried getting into Diana's gun safe and got caught on camera doing it. I'm far away from it all, and I'm glad at this point. Update #3, the 29th of August, 2022. I'll be honest and say that I completely forgot about this account. I came back to 30-something notifications, so I figured someone might still be interested in how things ended up turning out. Sorry if it's not the most interesting update. Dave apparently ended up dating someone else after our divorce was finalized. Found out via Facebook. He stayed with this woman for about 2 months and then they broke up. I actually happen to know the reason why, because she made a post on her own account. Avery showed up at her house threatening to kill her while he was drunk. This happened at around the same time he got caught trying to steal Diana's gun from her safe. So I'm just going to put two and two together and say that I think I know why he went for the gun. Avery ended up being arrested for it, though I don't think he was charged with anything. If he was, I don't think he had to serve any time. This happened about a year ago, and about 3 months ago I got a call from Diana. We didn't talk much after I left, because I believe she figured it would be easier for me to not have to hear about any of that anymore. Avery died. His death was called a suicide, though they're not exactly sure if that's the case. It happened at a party, and that's what everyone else said apparently. Somehow he ended up with some handgun and they think he shot himself. I'm not sure I totally believe that, but I don't want to think about it too much. It's definitely plausible. Avery spiraled pretty badly after I ran, if you can call it that. I feel somewhat sorry for Dave, but I mostly feel sorry for Diana. Their kid was an awful human being, but they didn't deserve to go through the pain of losing him. No matter how I felt about him and the awful things he did to me, I couldn't bring myself to feel happy that he died. I mean, I'm relieved, if that makes sense, but I'm not happy about it. It feels like it would be wrong to be happy about it. I did end up getting myself into therapy after I got settled. I've been looking back at some of the things I wrote when it was all initially going on, and honestly, I'm kind of alarmed with how little I reacted to the things that were happening. I feel like I was just exhausted at the time. I brought it up to my therapist, and she told me it was probably just my way of trying to not break down with everything happening around me. But I'm in a much better place now. I'm looking into getting myself a new cat, and I've even opened myself up to the idea of dating again. I will say one more thing now that I've had time to really process it. Everyone who used my posts in their YouTube videos as content can go fuck themselves. I'm not going to go hunt down every video that has my posts in them, but you're really despicable for taking the things I've said and trying to profit off of it. The things that were said about me were disgusting and vile, and should not be said about anybody. That being said, I don't think there will be another update. I might post some pictures of my new cat, but I'm happy to say that the chapter of my life with Dave and Avery in it is over and far behind me. Story 11. Bestie's divorce causing issues in my marriage. April 22, 2022. My 40F best friend, 38F, is going through a divorce with her husband, 44M. We'll call them Alice and Ken. My husband, 37M, and I have been together for 10 years and have always been close with Ken and Alice. Alice and I have been friends since long before we meet either of our partners. My husband and Ken have become good friends over the years, and they hang out just the two of them semi-frequently. About a month ago, Ken told Alice he wanted a divorce. She told me for the last 6 months they've been having issues. According to her, the problem stemmed from Ken's issues with her job. 3 years ago, she accepted a promotion at her company. The promotion required her to travel 3 to 4 months out of the year, and she works a lot even when she isn't on assignment. She's always been insanely ambitious and successful. I think it's important to note that Ken works full-time as a tradesman. He works out of his shop, metalwork, on their property and stays pretty busy. She makes more than he does, but I wouldn't call her the breadwinner. Alice has a daughter, 12F, from a previous relationship. Bio dad isn't in the picture, and Ken has been her dad since she was 4. According to her, Ken has been asking her to either take a position that requires less hours and responsibility or find a new job that doesn't require any travel. She's been telling him she will, but has been putting it off, thinking he'd drop it eventually. This has been going on for a while. She didn't tell me how long exactly. It all came to a head when she extended a business trip, while on the trip, and forgot about a family vacation they had planned for when she got back. She didn't consult him about extending her business trip before agreeing to it. She apologized and promised to make it up to him and their daughter. She said she didn't have a choice when it came to extending the business trip. Whether that's true or not, I have no idea. Ken was upset but didn't blow up. When she got home, though, his stuff was packed and he'd moved most of his shop and tools into storage. He hadn't told her any of this and was acting like everything was fine till this point. She called me and was crushed. She kept saying I didn't think he'd do it over and over. What was at first sadness on her end quickly became resentment, anger, when Ken made it clear there was no getting back together. Ken and my husband were in contact during this whole ordeal. Husband knew they were having issues, but didn't know the extent of it till after Ken left Alice. Ken told my husband that Alice had been checked out of the relationship ever since she took the new position. They don't do anything as a family anymore. Alice doesn't make time for them to talk when she travels. I guess he asked her for some nudes and sexy dirty talk a few times, and she rejected him but had time to go out with coworkers. They don't have sex anymore. He'd voiced these issues numerous times, and she blew him off, according to Ken. Everything became much worse after a particular incident that is hard to even type without cringing. Ken and Alice had been separated for about 3 weeks. Their daughter was bouncing back and forth between Ken's apartment and their old home that Alice was staying in. It was Ken's weekend with their daughter. He brings her back Sunday evenings. Well, Alice went on a bender and literally forgot what day it was. She was so fucked up. This isn't like her. She thought it was Saturday. It was Sunday. Ken shows up with their daughter and walks in on a shit show. Alice had 2 younger men there. They were drunk and in the hot tub. They weren't in the act, but it was clear what was going on. She started freaking out, calling Ken names, screaming that it wasn't Sunday yet. Ken kept their daughter in his truck so she didn't see the worst of it. They left. The next day she had no idea what had happened. She had texted Ken horrible things while she was fucked up. I only saw them because Ken sent my husband screenshots. I won't say word for word what they said, but it was really personal shit. Since this, Ken is going nuclear. He wants the house. He wants custody. He adopted their daughter long ago. He wants child support. He's taking her to the cleaners, as they say. I know this isn't Alice. She's going through shit. She needs friends right now, and I'm literally all she has. Her own daughter would rather stay with Ken. I'm not going to cut my best friend out over this. The issue? My husband wants me to cut her out. He said some really terrible things about her. He's called her a shitty mother. I know she loves her daughter. He's called her self-absorbed fucking B********H. He says he doesn't want me getting sucked into her drama and behavior. When I insist she'll turn it around and she just needs help right now, he shuts it down, saying this is who she really is, and he doesn't know why I want to associate with people like her. I know a lot of this is just shit that Ken has told him, and he's defending his buddy. I'm not excusing her behavior, but I think it's unreasonable for him to want me to cut my best friend out. She asked me to go out with her a few times, and I went once without telling my husband because I knew what he'd say. I just wanted to talk to her in person. After I told him we meet up, he went ballistic and repeated that if I don't cut her out, or we'd have issues too. Any advice navigating this would be appreciated. TLDR. Best friend going through a hard time. Husband left her. Husband wants me to end the friendship because of her behavior. Edit. I made this post on lunch break. On mobile now. The responses are overwhelming and eye-opening. I've seen recurring sentiment that I haven't said anything positive about Alice. I will read my post and realized you're correct. So I'll just say this. She wasn't always this way, and her behavior, drinking excessively, shrugging off family, work-obsessed, is relatively new. She used to be a good mother. We used to have fun family outings. Her and Ken were happy. When she took the promotion, all that changed gradually until this shit show happened. Maybe I'm blinded to her behavior now because I know once upon a time she wasn't this person. I plan on talking to her tonight and having an intervention. And I will let my husband know. Thank you for your responses, the good and the bad. Top comment, 1.4K by u/Frodo. _no *********. This woman is your bestie, and you didn't say one good thing about her, which to me kind of shows that either you know deep down she's not a good person, or you don't really know her as well as you think you do. You state a few times that she doesn't give you full details as well, which is odd since you're besties. She even claimed, "I didn't think he'd do it." What do you think that means? She knew he had told her that they'd get divorced if she didn't change. She literally tried to deflect until he forgot about it. It's very obvious she cares about her career more than her family. Honestly, the vacation would have been the end for me, too. What a horrible feeling for both the husband and daughter to know she'd rather work than spend time with her family. Your husband is right to be concerned. You tried defending her in your post, but again, there's nothing redeeming that you said. If you truly insist on helping your friend, then you need to make sure your husband feels comfortable and safe. Ken has been saying things to your husband, yes, but they're probably not that far from the truth, even if he's embellishing. Again, your own bestie doesn't tell you everything, so it's very possible she's been banging younger dudes in the hot tub more often than you'd think. My advice, if you want to keep your friend and not upset your family, is to get a little distance until it blows over. Don't introduce negativity in your relationship just because you want to help someone through theirs. Your family comes first. Update. Bestie's divorce causing issues in my marriage was removed, reposted here. April 25th, 2022, 3 days later. It wouldn't let me post an update without mentioning the ages relationships again, so the people involved are me 40F, my husband, 37M, married 10 years. My best friend Alice, 38F, and her husband Ken, 44M, married roughly 8 years. This is not a happy update. Alice and I made plans to get together on Saturday morning. I was going to get us coffee and help her with a few things around her house before she left for a business trip Monday. My intention was to tell her that we, her family and mine, are worried about her, and we all want to see her happy, but her behavior was worrying us. I was hoping we'd have a heart-to-heart. I was hoping I'd see my friend again. I was hoping she'd agree to see a therapist. I was hoping she'd take a step in the right direction. None of that happened. She was combative from the second I showed up at her place, almost like she knew what my intentions before I even said anything. When I told her I was worried about her, she said she was fine and has just been blowing off steam and having some fun. She said she works hard and can do whatever she wants now that Ken left her. She talked about how ungrateful Ken was over the years for all her hard work and everything she's paid for and done for him. It made me cringe, but I bit my tongue. For the record, Ken is a hard-working guy who didn't need her money. He was the breadwinner when they first got together. She makes quite a bit more than him now, but in no way was he dependent on her. Some of you pointed out it was likely that Alice was cheating on Ken. I asked her, and she got extremely defensive. She gave me the whole, "I can't believe you'd even ask me that" attitude. I reminded her about the hot tub incident and the optics of it all. She blew it off and swore she'd never cheated. I asked who the guys were. Turns out they were interns at her company. When I asked how old they were, she simply said they were legal. The way she said it made me wonder if that's how dirty old men talk about younger women. It was gross. Whether or not she was cheating before the breakup, I don't know. I don't really know anything about this woman anymore. Here's where things took an unexpected turn. As we chatted, she was packing for her business trip. I asked her where she was going this time. She said Dallas. I didn't think anything of it. She's gone to Dallas for business dozens of times. What did strike me as odd was what she was packing. Long pants, sweatshirts, a beanie, jackets, hiking boots. It was all fall attire and not what she'd be wearing in Dallas this time of year. I don't think I even saw her pack work clothes. But the weirdest thing? A random Seattle Mariners jersey. She doesn't follow baseball. She never has. I thought about saying something, but kept my questions to myself. It was all just odd. I felt like she was preoccupied with packing, and her daughter coming over soon, so I decided to head out. We hugged. I told her I loved her and want her to be happy. I told her I hope she considers seeing a therapist when she gets back. She said, "I'll think about it." Things did seem to end on a positive tone. When I got home, hubby and I were talking about how things went, and I told him about the clothes she was packing and the random Seattle Mariners jersey. He thought it was odd, too. But other than it just being odd, we didn't think anything of it at the time. But then hubby went full internet detective, and guess who lives in Seattle and has a Facebook profile picture of himself at a Mariners game? Her daughter's biological father. My heart sank. When I checked the Mariners' schedule, they do have home games next week. I called her immediately and asked her if she was really going to Dallas. She responded, "Yeah, why?" I asked if she was sure she wasn't going to see X's name in Seattle. She got quiet. There was probably a full minute of silence. I told her she better not lie to me and that I'd find out. She came clean. She said she had gotten in contact with him right after Ken left her, and they'd been talking more and more. She said he was a different man now and has turned his life around. Blah, blah, blah. I didn't talk about her baby daddy in the last post because it wasn't relevant, but just know this man is a piece of shit human being. He cheated on her while she was pregnant and kicked her out when she confronted him. He'd slap her around, call her terrible names. This fucking guy said he wanted nothing to do with their child also. I flew to Seattle, picked her up and brought her home. She lived with me for a bit. She met Ken shortly after having her daughter, and within a year of dating they moved in together. I told her that of all the shit she's pulled recently, this was by far the worst thing she could do. I told her I was disappointed in her. I couldn't believe she would ever speak to that man after what he did to her and how he treated her. She kept saying it was years ago and she's changed and he wants to meet his daughter one day. I started screaming and yelling into the phone so loud I think I blew out my voice. I told her I was done with her. I told her if she gets on that plane to Seattle to not bother contacting me ever again. I hung up on her. She called back and texted once, but I ignored it. I didn't have the energy for her anymore. I just sat on the couch crying all night while my husband held me. He didn't rub it in. He didn't give me attitude. He just let me cry and told me he was sorry. Alice texted me this morning. She said she's sorry for lying to me, but she's a big girl now and can look after herself. I asked her if she's still going to Seattle. She said yes. I blocked her. It's over. I told Ken everything. He was upset but not surprised. He said he knew how close Alice and I were and he was sorry I'd lost my friend. I told him I was sorry he'd lost his wife. You guys were right. I feel like a fucking idiot. Maybe it's a little selfish of me, but I feel betrayed. TLDR. My friend is ruining her life and going back to the man who abandoned her while she was pregnant. I've been defending her and acting as her advocate, hoping she'd get better. Not anymore.